President Obama just arrived back at the White House, really just moments ago after his whirlwind trip to Afghanistan. His surprise visit to Bagram Air Base was meant to rally U.S. troops there and to build support here at home for the war. And Martha Raddatz is in Afghanistan. Martha?
Good morning, Ron. The president's visit came at a critical time here in Afghanistan. A progress report is due out in the next few weeks to see if the strategy here is working.
Is everybody ready for the main event?
It was a rousing welcome by General David Petraeus, the commander of U.S. forces here.
President Barack Obama.
Thousands of U.S. military personnel had been gathered at Bagram Airfield for the president's unannounced visit.
On behalf of me, on behalf of Michelle, on behalf of Malia and Sasha, on behalf of more than 300 million Americans, we are here to say thank you.
The president awarded Purple Hearts to 5 soldiers and met with the platoon that lost 6 of its soldiers earlier this week. President Obama made clear that the additional 30,000 troops here have made a difference.
All of those troops are now in place. And thanks to your service, we are making important progress. We said we were going to break the Taliban's momentum, and that's what you're doing.
President Obama had hoped to meet with Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai, but because of weather, he could not make the trip to Kabul, talking instead by phone. Charges of corruption in the Afghan government laid out in the WikiLeaks documents continue to hamper progress. And violent attacks in Afghanistan are at an all-time high, up 300% since 2007, up 70% from just last year. The U.S. is still hoping to have Afghan forces trained to take over the fight by 2014, but even some of the Afghan soldiers themselves say they will not be ready. While the gains here may be just modest, it is clearly enough to continue with the strategy, perhaps with some small adjustments. Ron?
Okay, thanks, Martha Raddatz, reporting from Afghanistan. And Good Morning America anchor George Stephanopoulos is also on the ground in Afghanistan, just arrived for our special series, Afghanistan, Can We Win? He is there to see how the war is going and what challenges U.S. forces still face after more than 9 years of combat. And George joins us now from Kabul. Good morning, George.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, George, the president did not meet, as Martha was saying, with the Afghan President Karzai. How do you think relations between the two and the fight in Afghanistan are likely to be affected by these latest WikiLeaks cables detailing the rampant corruption all the way to the highest levels of the Karzai government?
Well, both Afghan leaders here in Kabul and U.S. leaders with the president in Washington are saying it's not going to have any impact at all, that everyone is aware of the problems between the United States and Afghanistan right now, but they're going to work through them. But it's hard to overestimate the challenges faced by the corruption in the Afghan government right now. We saw in those cables that the American ambassador here to Afghanistan believes that President Karzai is a weak and unreliable leader, and that's mirrored by a lack of confidence in the Afghan government among the Afghan people as well. And until you have that kind of confidence, this strategy cannot succeed over the long term.
And George, you're going to be talking to General David Petraeus, the commander of U.S. troops there. What are some of the biggest challenges that he and U.S. troops face in Afghanistan? A recent Pentagon report, of course, to Congress said that the U.S. has only made modest and uneven progress in Afghanistan in recent months.
And as Martha pointed out in her piece, the violence has gone up dramatically over these past 9 months since U.S. troops have increased their activity here. There's a number of challenges that General Petraeus has to overcome. Number one, even though they have increased the number of kills of Taliban leaders and Taliban forces, and they've been able to push the Taliban out of areas where U.S. forces have been able to go in big numbers, they haven't been able to eliminate the Taliban threat. The Taliban has been able to hold on to areas where we can't put large numbers of U.S. forces. Number two, there still is the continuing challenge of Pakistan, which provides a safe haven to the Taliban and their allies. Even though the United States has been pushing hard on the Pakistani government to crack down and not provide those safe havens to the Taliban, they've only had limited success there. The third major challenge we talked about just a minute ago, corruption and a weak central government in Afghanistan. Then arrayed against all that is that General Petraeus knows that he's fighting the clock as well, even though, as Martha pointed out, there are unlikely to be major changes announced by the president in his December review of the Afghan policy right now. He has promised significant reductions of U.S. forces come July, and said he wants to have a complete transition to Afghan forces by 2014. The Taliban know they can wait the United States out.
But the president says based on conditions on the ground. Is that right, George? Okay. Thanks very much, George Stephanopoulos, reporting from Afghanistan in our special series, Afghanistan Can We Win, begins tomorrow, Sunday, and runs all of next week.